board. Has that worked?
Yeah.
Are we recording? It didn't say you are now recording, but yeah. So welcome to this workshop on neurodiverse spirituality, looking at neurodiversity, spirituality, and sensitivity. Now, what we mean by neurodiversity, neurodiverse people include ADHD, autistic people, dyslexic, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, Tourette's. It's basically that our brains work a little bit differently. I myself received a diagnosis of Aspergers syndrome, which is on the autistic spectrum several years ago, a very late diagnosis. And a number of adults now are receiving late diagnoses of this, of different neurodiversities. And also being aware that we're not medicalizing that in the, but seeing that as a diversity and as a difference to be, to include people and to embrace that. And one thing that neurodiverse people have are different sensitivities, and explain some of those things, what I mean by that. There might be different sensitivities with sensory sensitivities, such as sight, hearing, smell, taste and touch. So there might be those sort of things, and also things like balance are affected in that. But also there might be emotional sensitivities, and I'll come on later and mention that might also include spiritual sensitivities. What I'm meaning by these sensitivities is that someone might be hypersensitive. They might be able to pick up and react to these sensory stimulus, these sensory stimulations a lot more. And so that could be quite difficult sometimes if you're oversensitive to things. But it can also be very helpful in that some of the sensitivities could be highly tuned. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. Sometimes it can be that we have a highly tuned sensitivity to sound, to music, to different tastes. And other times that can be a good thing, and other times that can be too overwhelming or make things difficult. So if taste makes things difficult, you might find that you have problems eating together, for example, and eating with other people. Sight and sound, obviously, bright lights, loud noises might be difficult. So in a concert setting, you might find in that sort of stage setting, you might find that overwhelming and difficult. And people may be vulnerable to overload and find things overloading and overwhelming in sensorily, but also emotionally. And we talked last month about empathy, which is interesting that, and we were talking about how people could pick up maybe other people's emotions. And though we might be thought of as not being empathetic, they might actually be able to somehow intuitively pick up other people's emotions. And so, but sometimes that can be overwhelming. And other times it can be really, really useful and really helpful to understand someone. So there's, as we're seeing, there's positives and negatives with these. So I just want to say some of these different sensitivities may help people in lots of ways and also may hinder them. And I'm thinking about how you connect with others, how you connect with your community in those settings where if it was crowded, if it was cramped in some way, you might find that overwhelming. And all those sensory things might come into play. But also, you might find you have a specific gift that you can use because of that sensitivity. And that may involve in spiritual practices. That might be eating together is one that I've mentioned. but it could be others. Some of those you might do on your own, in your own meditation or prayer or contemplative activities. And in that, you might find that quite helpful, that you have these different sorts of sensitivities. And that leads us nicely on to say that the sensitivities may include a spiritual sensitivity. Some of the things that I'm studying in my master's, that there are some sensitivities to things that are not fully understood and are maybe at the edge of the scientific realm, and you might pick up things in that way. But also it might lead to deep spiritual experiences that you can have. If you have this deep emotional sensitivity, you may find you also have a deep spiritual experience, experiencing the divine, experiencing the Holy Spirit, however you interpret that, and experiences of peace, and maybe of revelations. Maybe you're finding that gives you an insight into yourself, and we can talk about transformation in that, and also gaining a deeper sense of purpose. I think there's lots of examples I could bring out, but I think it'd be good to bring out to ask people for to ask you for the examples, because in a moment as we go into the breakout rooms, because I think people here have got a wealth of possible experiences and ideas that they could share of what that might include. So just to say, the breakout room question that we're going to have is, what might be some examples of gifts and challenges these different sensitivities bring to spiritual life? Again, you can share your own experiences, you can share things you've observed, or it might just be what you think. And if you prefer not to say that they're a personal experience, that's fine as well. So we'll go into breakout rooms in a moment. So thank you for that. We'll finish recording there, but that's what I want to say about that.